So this is a screencast designed to help you write the conclusion and put in some footnotes, learn how to do some footnotes as you're walking through the paper. This is the second part of the screencast for the writing the term paper. The first part was on the introduction. So I'm back to this document that you probably recognize by now, which is the outline for the paper whose thesis was the correlation between marijuana use and mood disorders later in life. And you recognize the big ideas here in color and the body, sections A, B, and C. And I've already discussed how to write the intro and suggested that if you're stumped and you get writer's block, you can always write your introduction after you've written the body of the paper and even after you've written your conclusion, because when the whole thing is done, you know exactly what to say because you've already said it. So some of the things that you already know about writing a conclusion is that you have to restate your thesis. And the problem here is don't restate the thesis exactly as you said it in the introduction, because that's boring. You have to restate it in a creative way. Say the same thing but say it differently. And if you've ever had to convince somebody of something who wasn't believing what you were saying, you know that you're very good at finding different ways to say the same thing. One of the things that you should do in your conclusion is restate not only your thesis, but what you consider to be your most important points. Now, you might have brought up 3 or 6 or 7 different important points, but you should focus in on 1, possibly 2 of all of your points. What is it that you want to highlight? So to leave your reader with a lasting impression of what it was that you were saying to them. And you should try to focus your reader's attention on the future. Try to think globally. Try to think, what might this mean now that you've said what it is that you've said? And one of the ways that you can do that is right here. I say that if you're in your introduction, you went from the general to the specific, and perhaps you didn't, but in your conclusion, you can go from the specific things you were talking about to looking at, say, the more global issue. Sometimes some of the things that we can ask ourselves and think about is something like, well, what if everybody did this? Or what if there were no laws protecting this? Or the what if scenarios, to imagine the consequences of whatever problem it is that you were discussing, if you were indeed discussing a problem. Make sure that you've answered the so what question. And the so what question is telling your reader why your paper was important. What was it that was meaningful? What was it that was useful? Try to bring your ideas together and to synthesize what you were saying, as opposed to just simply repeating what you've already said. And so if you repeat in a creative way what you've already said in your introduction, what you're actually doing there is tying a knot. Framing the issue is sort of the teacher language for the thing. So you state your thesis in the beginning and you restate it creatively at the end, and you've effectively tied up the whole thing because you've created a loop and you've closed it. Here is a part of a sample conclusion that I just started, and I'm not going to finish it because I want to show you how to put in footnotes. And so here I've used the personal pronoun I. You should be careful when you use this pronoun, but I'm supposing that it's all right to do it in a conclusion. And you can always check with your CGEP teachers later on and see what their recommendations are. Generally, it's always best to keep third person, but say, for example, if I don't put the I, you can, right here I've got in this paper, I have demonstrated. You could, let's say, to keep it third person, take that out and say something like, this paper has demonstrated, and then you've taken out the I. Okay, so this paper has demonstrated the correlation, and remember that's important in psychology because it's very difficult to establish cause. The correlation between cannabis use and mood disorders in teenagers, the effect of THC. Now, I could have said the active ingredient in cannabis, but that would be wordy and redundant, and that's not necessary, and it's actually distracting. The effect of THC on the brain's ability to produce serotonin, essential in regulating moods and general well-being, is seriously compromised when a teenager engages in abusive consumption of cannabis. It has even been demonstrated that early detection of bipolar symptoms can be an efficient predictor of patterns of abuse later in life. So with this last point here, I'm assuming that, well, let's pretend that I've already discussed this in my earlier paper, because you should not bring new information to a conclusion. This is not where you want to be developing new points. So this is something that I just read this evening, where there's a correlation between detecting bipolar symptoms in young children and seeing a correlation between mood disorders in young children and substance abuse later on in life. So it kind of works both ways. And so this is where I got this little piece of information. This is where I got that. So I got it here. I got it on this site, which is a great site for my psych students, the National Institute of Mental Health. And this is a government publication. And I have a date here for when it was published. Whoops, there's a date. And I don't have an author. I've looked everywhere. There's no author on this very short publication. But let's say it's this last line here that's interesting me. Now, I could quote this last line exactly like that, but I didn't. I paraphrased it. So this last line reads, they also suggest the earlier detection of bipolar symptoms could help to prevent consequent, that means future, substance abuse problems. So instead of quoting that because it wouldn't have fit in nicely to my paragraph, I decided that I was going to paraphrase it. Now I need to quote that. I can't just put that in there. I'm going to say where I got that from. So in my ribbon above here, you know, you've got your home tab, insert, page layout, go to references. And you see here it says insert an end note or a footnote. The end note is what goes at the end of the paper. The footnote is what goes at the bottom of the paper. So we're going to pick the footnote here. So I've clicked on the footnote, and as you go through your paper and you quote more times, you know, this little number here will change. All right, so there's my footnote. That's my first one. Actually, probably by the time I get to my conclusion, be my 6th or 7th or 5th or 4th or whatever. And here you see at the bottom of the paper, this is where that important information is going to go. But how do I cite that? Well, here's this great site that I found. This is really cool. And it is called citationmachine.net. So this is what you need to remember. Or Son of Citation Machine, but just go to citationmachine.net. And, well, I suppose I can back it up and show you exactly what I've done. But this is what the page looks like, citationmachine.net. And you fill out the document. I've got the MLA style, and over here on the left it asks you, well, what are you quoting from? Are you quoting from a book, an encyclopedia, a journal? This is all hard copy, so probably not what you're doing. Some of you might have be quoting from a book, but most of you are going to be quoting from online stuff. And so this is an online journal. This print is very small. An online magazine, online encyclopedia, a web document, and web-based images or videos. So I'm going to click on the web document, which is what I did, and it gave me this form here. I filled out the form. Just follow the fields and fill it out. The title of the web page, That's these guys here. That's the title of the web page. Title of the website. Well, in my case, it's this article title right over here. Date published or last revised. That's this date right here. Publishing organization. Well, in my case, I think it's the NIMH, and that's the National Institute for Mental Health. You might have to look around a little bit for that, but I found that down here. Date retrieved. Well, they put that in automatically, so that's today's date. And this would be the size of the print. And then the web URL is I just simply copy pasted from up here. Highlighted that, Control C, and then I just pasted that right in there. And I clicked submit. And then it gave me this. Copy the citation below and paste it into your document. So here you go. I just highlighted that. I copied that. I'm going to come back to my Word document and I'm going to paste that in at the very bottom. And there is my citation. So when I put my cursor over this little number 1, when you guys email me your digital paper, I'm going to see exactly where you got your stuff from, and I'm going to be able to go to that and check your sources immediately. And how cool is that? And so let's see now. Okay, so we've got the conclusion, we've got the footnoting, and this link up here is very, very helpful for working on bibliographies. And you need to work in a bibliography, so that brings you to this page here. We've got all of this down here, and we're at the very last, and you can click on this and it will show you how to cite your sources to write a bibliography. The bibliography should be the very last page. There's nothing else on that page. There's no text. It's just a page of sources that you cite, showing me where you got your information. Probably going to be exactly the same ones that you have in your annotated bibliography. And so that's it. I hope that helps. And I hope that this is going to be something that you're going to return to and use again when you work on writing papers.